German, we always talk about they need to have the BIS factor.
But I designed Excel sheets and to-do lists, and they needed to check, and they needed to fill out report cards and all kinds of stuff to manage the processes.
But we really want, like, okay, what are the 10 things we want our kids to really get?
Welcome to Get Your House in Order, where the Medici brothers, investors and entrepreneurs, Chris Auditore and Dr. Philip Zimmermann, discuss timeless principles of success, significance and legacy. A podcast for business owners who want to design a beautiful life and a beautiful business. Sponsored by the one and only exclusive Medici community.
Welcome back to Get Your House in Order. Today we're going to talk about leadership versus management, which hat to wear.
And it's about time that you get your house in order. If you've been listening to the podcast here, now we're trying our best here to help you.
Yes, especially because we just knocked down a few glasses of coffee over here and had to get the studio in order.
Yeah, we're very professional these days.
Very professional. So, leadership and management. Sometimes, there is this, there are some people who just want to talk about leadership, then there are others who just want to talk about management, and it's almost like one is better than the other. But in my experience, if you don't understand the two different roles, if you don't know what your role is and also what your employee's role is in the business when it comes to these things, it's not going to be successful. I've seen people that just talk about leadership all the time and forgot that you actually have to manage the processes, you have to manage the systems, you have to manage the people in order to get things done. While at the same time, I've seen managers who just wanted the perfect process and the perfect systems, but they never had anybody wanting to buy the product, or they never thought about the big picture, and they just went into the wrong direction. So, Chris, let's talk about leadership and management.
Yeah, and as you're saying that about you looking at other people, I feel like I've made every mistake along the way.
I can attest. I can attest.
Yes, I know you can. And this is the beauty of working together with your family, is they know they
don't forget.
They don't.
The elephant is remembering.
The elephant in the room. And the only reason now we can talk about some ways on how to do stuff is because we've done stuff wrong. So I'm taking back to one of my first businesses is that I got to rent a kitchen in Frankfurt. I was 18 years old, and I started out of the blue a catering business, which I'd never, this was never on my to-do list. But I could get a very good deal on a kitchen, a fully equipped kitchen, which cost hundreds of thousands. I could get it for a fraction. It was subsidized, and then I started, my little catering business, doing breakfast there for a school, and I hired my first employee, and then a few people, and then I thought, there's some great potential. I can build this into a larger company. At the end, we had about 70 people employed in this business while I was studying law at Frankfurt University. But the big problem was, now me looking back at it, is that I had absolutely no leadership experience. So I overmanaged the whole thing, and what do I mean by that? I knew we needed to set up some processes. I'm studying at university, so I can't be physically in the kitchen. I can't be coordinating people in the cars delivering food we opened up some shops at Frankfurt Airport, and I was a law student. I had to look at my books, so I designed all kinds of Excel sheets, which kind of sounds funny because now I don't touch them anymore. But I designed Excel sheets and to-do lists, and they needed to check, and they needed to fill out report cards and all kinds of stuff to manage the processes. So this is what it was great for some time, as it always is, and then it was a disaster. And the disaster is that I literally had a riot amongst my people. I had a few people kind of leave the job because they were frustrated. I had some resignations, and that's it. And I probably decided I need to read some leadership books here and learn something about motivation and getting the bigger picture right and trusting people with roles. And so I've made mistakes on the management side, big time. and then I pivoted to leadership. And then for a few years, I read a lot of leadership books. And I thought it's only about vision and motivation. And then like, shit, you need to manage the process. And who does that? Yeah. And so the idea of a managing leader is actually the one. So it's not either or, it's both. And it's different skill sets. And at different times, you need to wear different hats also in the growth of your company. But it's definitely something we need to discuss.
So the question, the story that always comes to my mind, I might have shared it before, but when it comes to leadership and management, is when I tried to raise money to buy a hotel, also over 20 years ago, and I did some fundraising to talk to investors in the US. And was traveling there, and they wanted to know, Philip, what is your vision? What is the plan for the hotel? How will the hotels change the whole city or branch out, and the whole world will be changed? And because
it's a typical American way of looking at the world. How do we change the world?
They didn't want to know the details. They want to know, how do we change the world? And so I gave them the vision talk. So I was excited. On my way back on the plane, I wrote a whole new pitch about how this hotel is going to cast a vision, how to And then I pitched before a German board. And I gave that vision talk, and I was ready, for them to actually sign up, move to the city, and actually run the place themselves, because they were so excited. And I remember the first question I got
from one of the board members. Yeah.
From one of the board members, a woman who asked, "So, Philip, how many toilets are there in the hotel?" And I looked at her and I said, "Well, I don't know." And she says, "So who's going to clean all the toilets?"
You, hopefully.
And then I realized that's the difference between Germans and Americans. The Americans, stereotype, of course, they want to know what's the big picture, what's the vision, how do we change the world? And then the German wants to know who is going to clean, the toilet. And matter of fact, we bought the hotel, and the cleaning of the toilets became a problem.
It became the biggest problem.
And reflecting basically on that alone, early on I realized if American philosophy and German philosophy comes together, it can be so powerful, because you need that bigger vision. You need to have that motivation of why we're actually doing this venture, because we are all going to get into very difficult and dark days where we don't know if we're going to continue. And you need to motivate your people. You need to have that vision. Yeah. But at the same time, you need to know who cleans the toilets.
Well, and I want to give a current example here of we're building out this Medici community, and we're working with business families around the world on the topic of legacy. How do you set up yourself, your family, and your business for legacy? And so I'm on stages. I'm fond. I'm in a sense, and I'm casting this vision. And literally, our vision is, and I want to put it out here, is that we want to be the company known around the world. If people hear the word legacy, they think of Medici Global Ventures and what we're working on and how we're actually helping business families. And I want this to be in every country with business families of all sizes really working on this whole topic. So I'm a big vision caster for this topic of how you need to do this. You and your family, you need to work on this. Now, most of the time, this is what people see on the outside. Now, on the backside of it, I need to manage some stuff. And I need to manage some people, and actually, most of that responsibility here in this case is with your side. But still, if people kind of saw even me in these two different realms, like when I'm out there, I've got this leadership, vision head on, kind of working on that. But then in the background, I'm tough as a nail, or hard as a hammer, or however you want to put it. But really driving down, there's some stuff that needs to happen and to be implemented. And that's actually when I go deeper also on some consulting things with some of the companies, is that I really drill down into the management details of things. And so this is, also sometimes where you shouldn't be mistaken. When someone knows how to cast a vision, when someone knows on how to motivate people, don't be mistaken. Okay, when the lights are off, you get off the stage, man, there's some freaking management that needs to happen. There's some processes that need to be implemented.
Well, whenever we put in a manager and want that they are managing processes, teams of people, you know, in German we always talk about they need to have the Biss factor.
Yeah.
Which comes, we had a Western Terrier, a little a dog.
I used to kick the dog.
Yes, you kick the dog, and whenever the dog was you know would bite something, you know, you could just shake it, and the dog would not let go. You know, he would be just biting you know, into his toy, and you could pick him up and he would still hold on, and so in German we call it the Biss factor. So you hold on, you're getting it done. And so a manager basically really needs this.
A Biss factor, yes.
A Biss factor in the sense like, okay, we have decided on the strategy, we have decided on the vision. Now it's not going to happen. It's not just going to happen by chance. You need to have that intensity and actually also working on the process.
Yeah, and you can smell that. Let me just say, this is I think the way some people smell that when they're in the room with me is that I have that. It's like, you know, I can tell some funny stories. I can make people laugh. We can all have a good time. But boy, if we get down to business, my friend, you're gonna have a terrier here in your neck.
Yes, a Western Terrier. So let me give you, and by the way, we have actually a framework also for the difference between a manager and leadership that we'll give you for free. Also, is normally just for our coaching clients, but you can get that if you just send us an email at coaching@medicilegacy.com, where actually I go through a bunch of differences between what is a leader and what is a manager, and we'll hit on a few of them. But I first want to kind of give us the bigger picture in the sense, if you have 100% leadership, 0% management, the result is vision with no structure and chaos. If you have 75% leadership and 25% management, bold, pioneering, but needs support. Okay, if that's you, and that's why actually in the framework you go through an assessment. Where do you land? Because that's also how you want to staff accordingly, how you want to kind of get support. If it's 50-50, it's balanced, it's steady progress. Okay, don't think of 10x if that's you. You will not 10x if that's kind of your whole team in your business is basically 50-50. If it's 25% leadership and 75% management, it's operational strength, but may lack inspiration. It's good, but if there's no innovation, is basically coming. And if you have 0% leadership and 100% management, perfect processes, no innovation, eventually stagnation. And that's why a balance is so important.
Well, I actually want to give a family example. You know, we're talking about business here, but I actually see myself also as a leader of my little tribe here, of my little family. And, you know, you need both in managing a family and raising kids. You know, it is, sometimes you give some motivation. You need to say, hey, where are we going here with this? But then, you know, when it comes to, you know, cleaning the room, you know, it's not so much about the vision, man. You need to drive down the process.
Are you showing them a nice picture of a clean room? Is that how you are casting the vision?
Yeah. So yeah, and this is also, you know, just on a side note, I see some business guys who are doing excellently on this management leadership thing in their companies, but they don't apply this also in a sense to their family. So, you know, I don't want to sound too strange here, but I also actually think of my family as an organization. Yes. You know, I've got 3 sons. Andrea and I have 3 sons.
There's a rebellion going on sometimes. There's a union being formed.
Yeah, we've had some riots, and some actually wanted to cancel out, but no. They're still part of the tribe. And so, yeah, I actually think, or even for my family, is that it's an organization that needs to be led, and there's some processes that need to be managed within the family.
Totally, and especially with successful business owners, it's very interesting that you have your quarterly meetings, you have your strategic things, but you don't apply this even to your relationship with your kids or with your spouse. You're not having a quarterly offsite with your wife. Why don't you have that? You need to have time to actually think through certain things and actually then align along the way.
Well, this was actually one of the takeaways from the last management conference that we did in Mallorca, is that it was Clay Trentham, who kind of a business owner from Fort Worth, from the US, Texas, and he did a workshop just on how to structure family meetings. And basically, larger families with lots of assets, they have at some point implemented, structures on how to come together, because there's just a lot of wealth that needs to be managed. So, we have these processes, but a lot of business people, specifically the first generation of wealth creators, they've never thought about these kind of structures. So they just focus in on the business, and then the family grows by the side, but they don't have family meetings. Now, what does that mean? Well, a family meeting is, think of it just like a board meeting. There's a preparation that needs to happen before. There's some minutes that need to be sent out before. There's the actual meeting, which needs to be run like a meeting. And then there's a follow-up, after the meeting. And so who does that in a family? Well, let me tell you, successful legacy families do that. And that's one big tip I would give, is structure also these conversations.
Yes, and I mean, because we are talking about designing a beautiful life, not just a beautiful business, we're in a lot of conversations where people open up also about their marriage struggles and their family situations, because we are also very open about that, because we all go through.
I'm probably too open. I talk about this all the time.
The good times and the bad times, we all go through these phases. But sometimes, also when you understand leadership and management, you can assess that when you are, talking to somebody who is in crisis in their relationship. Is it the leadership question? Is it the spouse? Is you and your wife or you and your husband not aligned on the vision? Is it a vision thing? Because this is a totally different venue on how to actually solve this. If you are not aligned on the vision, it takes a lot of more discussions, almost therapy, to work things through. If it's on the management, it's like, you have not taken out the trash again, or, there are just things, especially with small kids. I'm in the phase with small kids. It's just a madhouse, and you need management structures, routines, and the frustration in a relationship is not, hey, where are we going? But how are we surviving? The chaos that we've created through the vision of creating a family. And it's a different approach on actually how to solve it.
Yeah, and I love the way you just kind of put it out there, like a family vision. I love this expression, because I actually think every family should have a vision. Where are you going? I think every couple needs a vision where they're going. What are you building together? Because that's actually what you're doing. And so again, a big encouragement. If this is, if you haven't thought about that, you may be a great leader to your team and to your staff, but also for your family, they need the same, because we're human beings.
Yeah.
And we that sparks something in us. It gives us energy, even for perhaps specifically for the tough times.
Well, Christine and I, early on, and when we knew that we also want to kind of have children, we took a time of a few weeks to actually work on our values. We often talk about company values, but we really wanted, like, okay, what are the 10 things we want our kids to really get?
Yeah, 99% of couples don't have that.
Yeah.
Let me just say that 99%, I would say, have never sat down and discussed what are our family values, what do we stand for, and where do we want to go with our family.
So you have that, and then it really is about, when you see your child actually performing into a value, you speak into this, you address it, you create experience around a certain value that is important, that they really understand. This is you're putting money where your mouth is. It's not just a nice thing. You print it out. You talk about it. You ask questions. When about how they have kind of lived that value out. So there's a whole structure you can do. But really also when you're listening and your marriage right now maybe is in a tough spot, or your relationship with your child is in a tough spot, think through: is it a leadership problem or is it a management problem? Do you just not have enough time, or is there some bigger alignment that needs to shift? Okay, I want to talk about a few just different kind of between leadership and management, and kind of discuss it as we go. And you can get access to this whole long list. We'll not go through everything, but
Philip always has long lists. By the way, okay, this guy has created resources that just blow my mind, okay? Now, I've got some concepts in my head, but this guy has actually, created 25, 30-page documents out of these different topics, which is just so helpful.
Well, that's what we do in our coaching around the self-managing business. We actually talk about a framework every week. It's almost like a thinking framework, because we
lack frameworks. This is what we need. We need frameworks.
We talked about strategy, and a lot of what our job is actually thinking. But just sit down and think. You don't know what to do. So we are creating these thinking tools that you can use alone, with your family, with your team, in your business, for your marketing, for your sales, your operations, all of
and let me just say, because I work on the legacy level, is you don't fall into a legacy. Okay, our website is called Medici-Legacy.com. You don't fall into a legacy. It takes intentionality, planning, strategy, and frameworks to actually get there. Okay, and for me, this is why this is so important. This is so close to my heart, because it basically designs the path forward, and that's why we need that.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about leader versus manager. Leaders ensure that the right things get done. Managers do the right thing. Managers do things right. Leaders ensure that the right things are done. Managers do things right.
Yeah, so this talks about priorities. So basically, as a leader, you set the priorities. What's the priority here? There are 500 million things we can do in a business. What's priority here? You need to define that for your team, for your organization, for every department. You need to set. Well, if I say you, it's you or the leader over the department, and you together. So it's just, but it's a leadership. It's a leadership emphasis.
Yes and no. So it really depends on the strategy. I'm big in saying that a lot of the big picture strategies you as a business owner actually have to do alone, or with your family, or with your business partner, and not with your employees. I think there are too many leadership books that have written by authors that have never really run businesses.
You really create success.
And created a success. Because here's the thing: when you try to create a strategy, a high-level strategy with your employees, they have a different lens. They have a different agenda, and there's nothing wrong with them. But they look through, how will this impact my work-life balance? How will this change? How will I actually explain this to my team? I know Sally is going to be mad if we change something again. So even if this is not even happening consciously, it's happening subconsciously. In the subconscious, and so that's why strategy is really the business owner's job to actually create that thing. The right things are done, and then the manager makes sure the things are. It really happens. It's kind of the massive action plan is actually taking care, and the things are done right, and not just kind of sloppy. Second thing, the leader starts new things. The manager ensures that what has been started is properly organized.
Yeah, so this is I don't want to say any names, but I see I know a number of guys, who are very big in casting vision and creating heat, and they can give a wonderful presentation. And that's where sometimes, if you look at people over a little bit of time,
track record.
Yeah, is there a track record of them actually implementing their stuff? and do they follow through? This whole thing about follow through, and this is where I almost want to throw away all these leadership books that just talk about vision, and just say, listen, if there's no follow through on you casting a nice vision and giving motivation, and then please, get out of business. You irritate me. You irritate your investors. You irritate the market, because it is about the follow through. Success is 90% of just following through on what has been promised.
Well, and that's where you and I have done often a disservice to the teams that we actually led, because we love starting new things. I mean, we're talking about thinking every week. Every day I get out of the shower, I have a new idea of what I want to implement. But if we actually move our teams and our organizations around this all the time, because we just had a new idea, it becomes a real problem. And the problem is, that's how I kind of teach it when we talk about the self-managing business. You need to implement what you're doing as maybe you're starting something new. It's called a project. You can't really delegate and scale a project. What you can do is out of a project, you can actually create it into a process. And a process can be scaled, and it also can be delegated. And you can build systems, playbooks around that you can build. But if you are always in the project phase, and leaders who are 100% leaders, they always want to start something new. It's always a project. It's always the first time we're doing this. And then you can never build the foundation for actually scaling something, number one. And number two is actually for freedom to remove yourself out of daily operations, because in the beginning phase, you are needed.
Yeah, it's very valuable. It's very valuable, and I think this assessment. Let me just talk for a moment about highwaying also to your weakness, and also what you want to do. So sometimes if I look back over my career of creating companies, there were times when I really enjoyed management. Like I really, because I love to execute. I don't want to be a talker. I just really love to execute. And then there were times where I really didn't want to execute so much in the details. I really wanted to really more, work on motivation stuff and kind of the, hiring the right people and working through people and so forth. And so number one, it's kind of what do you actually want to do, like with your persona? What are your strengths there? But then how do you get some other people who help you if you want to focus in on that, or if you do focus in on that, who can complement you? And so people who are strong on leadership need strong managers to their side. Now, on the other side, if you're more a manager, well, please hire some leaders, that can make sure that it's complementary.
Yes. That's why in the framework there are actually 25 different definitions of a leader and a manager, and people can go through an assessment to, number one, know themselves first, because self-awareness is basically key. But number two is also to really realize who do you need on your side. So you can get this whole framework at coaching at MediciLegacy.com. You can just write us an email and say, please send me the leader management framework, or the leader manager framework, and we'll send it to you via email. But really think this through, because it's one important aspect of getting your house in order in business, but also in family. And then we'll hear and see each other in the next episode.